In the summer of 1983, something monumental happened that would forever change the trajectory of history. Guion Bluford Jr., an Air Force officer, engineer and scientist, became the first African-American astronaut to journey into space. The world watched as Bluford stood on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral, ready to board the Space Shuttle Challenger. His place in history was set, but what many did not know was the fierce and often painful path Bluford had to take to reach this moment, full of challenges, discrimination and perseverance. Born on November 22, 1942, in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Guion Bluford's journey to the stars didn't begin in the vastness of space. It started in the heart of a segregated America, where opportunities for black men were often few and far between. Bluford's family instilled in him a deep value for education. His father was a mechanical engineer, and his mother worked as a schoolteacher. They both understood the power of learning and encouraged their son to excel in his studies, no matter the odds. Growing up in a segregated city, Bluford witnessed firsthand the challenges of being black in a society that often saw him as less capable or deserving of success. However, from a young age he was drawn to the wonders of science, fascinated by the mysteries of flight and space. As a boy, he would stare up at the night sky, dreaming of what it would be like to soar among the stars. But that dream seemed far removed from his reality. In the 1940s and 50s, black people were almost invisible in the fields of science, technology, and engineering. For someone like Bluford, the idea of becoming an astronaut was a dream that only the most privileged could afford to entertain. Still, Guion Bluford was undeterred. He excelled academically, graduating from Overbrook High School in Philadelphia, and soon after he went on to earn a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering from Pennsylvania State University. The road to an engineering degree wasn't easy for him. As one of the few African-American students in the program, Bluford faced moments of isolation and doubt. There were times when he was questioned by professors and peers about whether he truly belonged in a space dominated by white faces. But Bluford's resolve only grew stronger. He continued to push forward, eventually earning a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the Air Force Institute of Technology. It was during his time in the Air Force that he would first entertain the thought of becoming an astronaut. But even this dream, something so profound, was far from being a guaranteed reality for a black man. NASA, the organization that would soon become the launchpad for Bluford's legacy, was a place where, at the time, few African Americans had ever set foot. In 1966, Bluford joined the United States Air Force as a fighter pilot, where he became one of the few black men in the skies. This was during a time of intense racial tension in the United States, and while Bluford's talent and hard work were unquestionable, he faced adversity both in the cockpit and on the ground. He would later recall incidents where his skill was doubted purely because of the color of his skin. But Bluford had learned not to back down in the face of adversity. Time and again he demonstrated his unmatched abilities as a pilot, earning the respect of his peers and superiors. By the early 1970s, Bluford had accumulated over 2,500 hours of flying time. He was the real deal. He had the skills, the intelligence, and the drive. But there was one more thing that stood between him and his dream: NASA's strict criteria for astronauts. NASA's space program was selective, and at the time the barriers for entry were high. As the United States pursued space exploration at full speed, the astronaut program was reserved for a very specific set of individuals, mostly white, highly skilled, and with the perfect credentials. Bluford's first application to NASA in the 1970s was rejected. The reason? He wasn't part of the right demographic, the right type of astronaut. It was a bitter blow, and the feeling of rejection cut deep. But Bluford wasn't the type of man to give up easily. The roadblocks only pushed him harder, forcing him to refine his skills and improve his knowledge. He didn't let one rejection stop him. Instead, he used it as fuel to prove that his dream wasn't just a fantasy. It was a possibility waiting to unfold. In 1979, NASA once again opened its astronaut selection process, this time for the Space Shuttle program. It was a new era of space exploration, and there was a glimmer of hope that this could be Bluford's moment. In the previous astronaut selection classes, there had been no black candidates, and the roster was overwhelmingly white. But Bluford applied again, undeterred by his previous failure. This time he was selected to join NASA's prestigious astronaut program. He was one step closer to the stars. Bluford's training was rigorous. The selection process for astronauts was grueling, filled with physical, mental, and emotional tests that pushed the limits of human endurance. For someone like Bluford, the process was even harder because it was unclear how others in the program, particularly those from a different racial background, would treat him. Would they accept him as a colleague, or would he remain an outsider? In the end, Bluford proved his mettle. His technical knowledge, precision, and calm under pressure were undeniable. He earned the respect of his peers and supervisors, But the journey was still far from over. Even with his training complete, Bluford faced the constant reality of being one of the very few black men in the program, a reality that carried its own form of loneliness and doubt. Then the moment arrived. On August 30, 1983, Bluford climbed aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger as part of the STS-8 mission. The world was watching. A black man was about to journey into space. This moment was historic, not only for Bluford but for black Americans and people of color across the globe. It was the culmination of years of hard work, dedication, and resilience. It was a clear message to the world. Dreams do not have limits and barriers are meant to be broken. As the shuttle lifted off from Earth, Bluford, along with his fellow astronauts, was flung into the cosmos, becoming the first African American to fly in space. The view from space was as magnificent as he had imagined as a boy, but it was also humbling. From up there he saw the Earth, not as separate nations or groups, but as a single fragile sphere suspended in the vastness of the universe. Bluford later described the experience as both awe-inspiring and humbling. This was humanity's moment, and he was part of something much larger than himself. But Bluford's mission wasn't just about breaking barriers. The work he did on the Challenger had real-world implications. He helped deploy communications satellites that were integral to military and civilian efforts. But for Bluford, the true significance of his journey was not just in the work done on the mission, but in the message it sent to the world, that no dream, no matter how big or impossible, was beyond reach. In the years that followed, Bluford would go on to complete 3 more space flights, breaking new ground and demonstrating his excellence in the face of adversity. His legacy as the first African-American astronaut in space became a symbol of perseverance and the limitless possibilities of what one can achieve with determination. Guion Bluford's story is one of overcoming every obstacle put in his way, from racial prejudice to the skepticism of others. He didn't let society's limited vision define him. His story, however, was never just about reaching space. It was about reaching people. About showing the world that anyone, regardless of their race or background, could aim for the stars. Even after his time with NASA, Bluford continued to inspire. He went on to work in the private sector, mentoring young people, particularly those from underrepresented communities, to follow in his footsteps. He spent years educating and encouraging the next generation to chase their dreams and to remember that their potential was as vast as the universe itself. Guion Bluford's legacy is not just the accomplishment of being the first African American in space. His legacy lies in the countless lives he touched and the doors he helped open for others. He paved the way for a more inclusive future, one where children of all races, colors, and creeds could look up at the stars and know that their dreams could be as limitless as the universe. And so, in the pages of history, Bluford's name is forever etched, not just as an astronaut but as a symbol of what it means to defy the odds and soar higher than anyone ever thought possible. As we look up at the sky, we remember the man who dared to dream of the stars. And we continue to reach, to dream, and to push the boundaries of what's possible, because if Guion Bluford could make it to space, then the sky truly is the limit for all of us.